Hello and welcome to Zestology, the podcast all about energy, vitality and motivation. Tony Whiten here in London, and as promised last week, going to focus on ketosis today. Ketosis and the keto diet is the most searched for diet on Google of 2017, and yet a lot of people don't even know what it is, how they can get into it, and what the hell makes it so popular and so crazy. The reason that I wanted to look at it on Zestology is that it's been a part of my journey, a big part of my journey. Not sure I like that phrase, actually. It's been a big part of my life over the last 3 or 4 months. I've been doing ketosis. I didn't know if I really wanted to do it, but I gave it a go. And the reason I gave it a go was not to lose weight and wasn't to tone up, but it was to get more energy, to decrease inflammation, and to kind of be healthier, really. And it's hard. It is not easy. A big, worldwide respected expert in ketosis, Dr. Anthony Gustin. Dr. Anthony Gustin, as well as he's got his fingers in so many pies, it's unbelievable. As well as being a respected ketosis expert and a regular doctor and all the rest of it, he's also launched his own keto range, Perfect Keto, which we talk about a little bit in the podcast. And I have been involved in bringing Perfect Keto over to the UK, which I'm quite excited about. So you can actually get Perfect Keto now. It's pretty good. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about our experiences in there, but full disclosure, I have been involved with Dr. Anthony and the rest of his team in making sure that people in the UK can get it as well, so that's exciting. There's a little bit on that and a little bit on exogenous ketones and loads more on what this diet could do for you. Don't think of it so much as a diet, more of a way to be sharper, live with more energy, get rid of your dodgy back or your dodgy knee, all those headaches, or even more seriously, some serious degenerative illnesses. And even people use this diet for things like cancer. And no one's saying that you go on the keto diet and your cancer's gone the next day, but it seems that even mainstream medicine is starting to acknowledge that ketosis has a place in the treatment of serious medical issues. And I hope you enjoy this week's podcast with Dr. Anthony Gustin. Right, hello and welcome to Dr. Anthony Gustin. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Very good, thanks. And you're in Budapest at the moment.
I am. A little work remote time right now.
It sounds sensational. And I think one of the first interesting questions is, bearing in mind we want to talk about ketosis today, is that I've been doing this for 3 months or so. And the times that I've found it hardest is when I'm traveling. Are you finding it harder whilst you're on the road to, go into a restaurant with lots of tempting dishes and not many immediately apparent dishes which are high fat, low carb, and actually stick to the diet that you're on?
One of the things that I think people get caught up in is that they need to be doing a ketogenic diet 100% of the time, which I think is realistic or normal for humans to do. And also a goal of ketogenic diets is what are you trying to get out of it? And so me personally, I don't have a lot of disease I'm trying to reverse. I don't have a lot of metabolic problems I'm trying to fix. I don't have any type of fat that I need to lose. And so for me, it's more of general well-being or mental performance. And so I really like to buffer my mental performance by eating a ketogenic diet, especially when I'm at home. That being said, though, I don't think it was that bad. I was actually in France for a week and a half before I was here. And I was posting on Instagram and stuff how, I was going out and eating a lot of really awesome French food and still in ketosis at that point. I don't think I am anymore. In the last few days I haven't measured, but when traveling, I think it's actually easier to eat a higher fat diet than it is to eat a low fat diet, because so much of that stuff, then you can't have any salad with oil or anything like that. You can't have really any meats if you're eating low fat that have any kind of fat with them. And so I think it's just about prioritizing whatever type of goal is most important to you. If you have a lot of these things that you want to check off, fat loss, disease, et cetera, it's probably going to be more important to switch and make that such a priority to you when you are on the road. But I think if you're kind of going in and out and have a metabolic flexibility where you can do a ketogenic diet, as well as kind of bounce out and eat some carbs and then see how you feel. I still am pretty strict. I'm not eating gluten. I don't eat any kind of wheat products because I don't respond very well to that. So even in Paris, I was sadly passing on most of the bread and most of the croissants and stuff like that, which I love. But I mean, that's the type of stuff where I know it really messes with any of my goals, which is just to feel good. And so that paired with like, if I am going to work out, I usually, or if I'm going to eat any kind of carbs, I'll time it like after a workout or something like that. And so I can still maintain some level of ketones. Definitely not as high as when I'm home and I can control every single meal. But I think it's just like a realization of what you want to get out of it and kind of how you're going to do that on the road.
Yeah. That's interesting, actually, because I'm not doing it for weight loss. I'm doing it for inflammation and sharpness, and actually probably more than anything to kind of try and reset my digestive system and really sort that out. All of those things I've noticed an improvement over the last 3 or 4 months.
Super effective for those things.
Is it? And what, in digestion as well?
Yeah, so I would say it depends for sure on the kind of digestive issues people have. And so, is there anything that in particular you were looking to address?
Yeah, I mean, with me, it's been a case that over the last 20 years or so, I've always had quite an inconsistent stomach, and every once in a while it would flare up, and I'd get a dodgy tummy, and it would last a few days, and it would really have a massive impact on my energy and wellness levels. Just take me out of action for a couple of days. And whatever I've tried hasn't really worked. And actually, I've noticed that with the keto diet, at first it kind of flared it up a bit actually for the first month or so, but over time, because I track these things, I can tell that it's just more consistent at the moment. And even when I do introduce carbs, which I've been doing about once a week, I've been having one or two meals, say on a Sunday with carbs in them, for example, and feeling really quite good. So that's what I'm working on. I don't know if that sounds like something that would be relevant for ketosis or not.
Yeah, they actually have shown that once you switch to a ketogenic diet, or especially a high-fat diet, your gut microbiome shifts slightly. And so what happens is you have to have certain bacteria that can break down and ferment and process carbohydrates. And so if you're only eating primarily that fuel substrate like most people do, just because of most of the food choices and the way education and nutrition goes, I think you get a very one-dimensional gut microbiome. And so that can, and there's a lot of mechanisms of how carbohydrates can lead to either long-term gut problems or even intermittent flare-ups. Or either like you can have an overgrowth of a certain amount of bacteria in certain parts of your digestive system, or you can have an imbalance of sometimes if you have stuff where some bacteria wouldn't be digesting it properly, or you would have a kind of like a distribution of stuff that when digesting carbohydrates can flare up some stuff. You can have actual integrity of the gut lining issues. And so at that point, if you have carbohydrates, what will happen is it can create a little bit of inflammation, and that can, if you have any kind of, it's called leaky gut or gut permeability, you can actually then experience some inflammation a couple of days after. And it's like, that's what happens when I have the wheat and the gluten. That's why I avoid it. And so for me, I feel like you said, maybe a cleaner digestion as well on a ketogenic diet, or at least doing it the majority of the time.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you're in Budapest. I know a lot of people that I know who are interested in a ketosis diet. They still don't quite get why. And let's be honest, in this country, we love our roasts and our pasta and our curry, national dish. So, give us a little flavour of what you ate yesterday, for example, what your routine was and how that could apply to people on a ketosis diet, if you were actually eating ketogenic yesterday.
Yeah, so I went to so I've been here for a little over a day, and so actually I only have had one meal so far.
Yeah.
But I had actually I had 2 meals, because this morning I had an acai bowl with some banana in it. So probably not in a ketogenic state right now, but it was nice. It was good. I like stuff like that with low fruit sugars. I actually respond pretty well to. And this is a thing too that I think most people don't realize, is that you need to test stuff pretty rigorously to see how you respond to it. So they've done studies where people eat bananas and cookies, and some people, their insulin spikes up and their glucose spikes up if they eat bananas and not the cookies, and then vice versa the other way around too. So you really need to test to see kind of your tolerance to these type of foods.
Okay, so you're not testing all the time to see if you're in ketosis. You're testing around specific foods.
Yeah, to see the result of what happens with that. Because if you don't test, everyone's digestion, we talking about the microbiome again, can process foods a little bit differently. And so let's say I my blood sugar spikes from eating a banana versus somebody else, well, then I would just avoid that. And so the only way you can know if you as an individual do that is by testing.
And how would you test that?
Blood meter. So that's the best way to test actual levels. Because if you use so there's 3 ways to test your ketone levels. And so one would be by breath, which is kind of a new technology, which I think still has some ways to go before
I've found this is a little bit dodgy, that my breath meter that I've been using.
Yeah, like they're 2, like the one that's good is called Level, but it's huge and like I can't travel with it. The ketonics one I think is a little inconsistent for my experience at least. And then there's the urine strips where it's really hard to get an accurate measurement on that. So like I can't see exactly how much ketones I'm going to have, as well as it's how much ketones you're excreting, not like how much it's floating around in your bloodstream. And so it's kind of an inaccurate measurement. Good for if you want to see when you're first getting into ketosis. And then there's the last is the blood meter. So that measures the actual ketones that are floating around in your bloodstream. And so what's beneficial about that is that you actually get a level, just like if you were to test your blood glucose. And so let's say, I usually test both those in conjunction. So let's say my blood glucose is at like 74 and my ketone levels are like a 1.2 or something like that, which is pretty standard for me when I'm in ketosis, like about that ratio. And then I have a meal. I can check at 30 and 60 minutes afterwards and see, one, how much my ketone levels decreased or how much my glucose increased, and then how quickly that goes back down to a stable point. And so less of those spikes, the easier it will be to stay in ketosis.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've tested this stuff with actually, so I make usually my own acai bowls at home, and then I've tested with bananas too, and like a fourth of banana is not going to kick me out of ketosis if I'm running like that. And so people need to understand it's not just completely zero carbohydrates. It's how much of the ones that you tolerate, in my opinion. So it's not like a all or nothing type of game here.
Yeah. But it's funny that when you're talking, I remember when I listened to presentations on ketosis, or even listened to ketosis podcasts before I started trying it, I just thought, oh God, I've got to test myself before and after eating a banana. It sounds like too much hassle. And now I'm into it, but I'm conscious that some people will listen and they'll think, that just sounds like a bit too much hassle. Right. But actually it's worth it, I've found, for the clarity of thought and the digestion as well.
So then I would say you only have to do that once. Because so then like, oh, I respond to a banana like this. I respond to a steak or curry like this, you know what I mean? And so then you have kind of a gauge as far as like your own individuality, because there's too much individual variance here. And so when people try to take these cookie cutter statements of, oh, the glycemic load or index of a food is this, therefore you can't have it, I think that's completely inaccurate. And everybody's metabolism is so wildly different that I think doing a little bit of the work to really make a unique kind of set and plan for yourself is the most important thing that you can do. It's such an individual thing. I think it's like that's why I really like the paleo kind of approach for people who aren't really ready to get into that, because then you can start with food quality and make some really easy choices as far as just eating real foods. And then that's not an individual thing. Every human needs to eat real food, for example, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the ketogenic diet is super difficult if people aren't willing to test and be a little bit of a scientist, because you really have to figure out what works for you as an individual. And there's not a lot of hard and fast rules of just like, oh, I need to eat below 24 grams of carbohydrates, or you need to eat this much fat or this much ratio of protein to fat. And so you really need to kind of dig out the lab tools and get some kind of nitty gritty details in yourself if you want to be effective long term.
So going back to your day in Budapest yesterday.
Yeah. So I had Mediterranean food, and so I had a little bit of chicken thighs. Basically, it's this shawarma, and then this stuff called shakshuka. So that's just like a tomato and egg dish. And so I was here with my friend, and he was eating some hummus and like this naan type of pita bread. So I just skipped that stuff. And so like that, I just had this tomato sauce and egg and these chicken thighs and a bunch of these sauces. I mean, and I think tabbouleh. How do you say this?
Yeah, tabbouleh. Yeah. So we had that as well, which was excellent, fresh. And so that, again, like super easy. Like I know, like first of all, I wouldn't eat the bread because, like I said, I'm a little sensitive to gluten. But then just not eating the hummus and skipping on that, and just having the meat and basically vegetables is usually how I. Sounds delicious.
Yeah, it was pretty incredible actually.
Yeah. Do you feel, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed with ketosis is that I do voiceovers once a week. So I'm a TV presenter here in the UK, and I do voiceovers for a golf show as well. And sometimes I'll go in and I'm going to be honest with you, Anthony, I'll be a bit of a shambles. And it'll take like 4 takes to get kind of one line out and that kind of thing. Since I've been doing ketosis, no joke, I've turned into a bit of a kind of one-take Tony. I go in there, I reel off all the voiceovers, one take Tony, and then I'm done. That is a specific, measurable way to show that this stuff really does increase my clarity.
Yeah, and so here's another thing too, is like people like to hate on the supplements because they say, especially for the exogenous ketones, like, oh, well, it elevates your ketone levels, but that's not real, and your body's not actually in ketosis, and like they'll just go away. Which, sure, that's completely valid. It doesn't just flip a magic switch. It helps to get you in ketosis longer term. However, when you take stuff like exogenous ketones, which is why I like the product so much, and why we made it, is that if I am traveling or I'm doing something and I want a boost in ketone levels to have stuff like mental clarity, which, like I said, was one of my priorities, your brain actually, if you have carbohydrates and ketones in your bloodstream, your brain will preferentially take up the ketones for energy, which lead to this huge spike in mental performance for me, at least. And so like this type of stuff, you feel super sharp and on it. I actually get, like, even if I had the hummus and the naan and stuff yesterday, I'd be able to kind of target almost and use it as a mental performance boost, because it would really bump my levels up, and then the brain would uptake the ketones even in the presence of carbohydrate.
That's it. So let's just talk about that, because I just want to quickly back up and say exogenous ketones are basically supplemental ketones that you can take to put yourself very quickly in ketosis.
Right.
And you, being kind of right at the forefront of this keto movement, you've launched this incredible company, Perfect Keto, and people are just loving your product to essentially put themselves instantly in ketosis.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that, so the breakdowns of fat is, so obviously people probably knowing what ketosis is already, but one of the ketone bodies is beta hydroxybutyrate, and that's the one that flows around in your bloodstream the most. And so the product of an exogenous ketone is just that attached to a salt that you consume, and so then it will increase your blood levels. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a good way for people to experience it. I think if people have stuff like metabolic issues, fat loss, things like that they want to approach, that it's best to obviously pair exogenous ketone use with a nutritional ketosis plan. So it's not like a magic pill. It's not going to like allow you to go eat a ton of carbs and just have this stuff and magically all the time be in ketosis.
But awesome even if you are eating carbs, it'll put you into keto. It'll certainly raise your ketone levels straight away, won't it?
Yeah, correct. But you know, like if you had stuff like a metabolic issue to fix, for instance, it's best for you always to be running on ketones and have that level of carbohydrate intake lower. You're gonna get way more benefits for that use case out of doing that. But it's an easy way for people to kind of see if the benefits of ketosis short term would work for them.
Well, I mean, I've been having it before I go out to party, Anthony. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you. I'm not sure if that's the way you created the product, but it genuinely gives you such an energy spike. You know, it's 11 p.m., you want to go to bed, but you said to your mates you'd go and meet them. Well, a quick shot of Perfect Keto and you're ready to go.
Is that how you take it, in shot form?
Pretty much. I was actually at a party and I felt like a bit of a dealer because, you know, like in times gone by, I might have been kind of imbibing something I shouldn't have. Now I'm just, you know, I'm a much more clean living soul. But the Perfect Keto seemed to have quite a similar effect anyway. I'm really not making it up. It is one of the products that I've found works. One of any supplement that I've found has an instantaneous effect more than any other.
Yeah, and that's why I like it too. Like I have a tub in my suitcase and I've been using it pretty much every day. And so I'm here for like another week and a half and I'm going to run out. It's kind of makes me sad.
Do you, how many scoops would you have a day? Would you have like one a day? And
1 and 2. It just depends. Like I'm having more now because I'm a little bit more lenient with my nutrition. But when I was in France and still pretty deep into ketosis, I wasn't having it as much. But now I'm targeting it more. So for like yesterday, I was on a plane ride here and I had it before the flight because I was going to do a lot of work on the flight, and it worked wonders for that.
So instantly made you sharper.
Correct.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome because, I mean, genuinely speaking, I've taken supplements before that they say makes you sharper, and you don't really, or you don't, maybe it's a 2% rise, but with this stuff, it is more like 30%.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like an outrageous claim to make, but it's just you're literally just providing your brain with a basically an easier to use metabolic substrate for energy, and so it works for that use case specifically.
So what are the side effects? Are there any side effects to putting beta hydroxybutyrate into your system on a daily basis?
Yeah, this is a question I get a lot. Actually, me and my friend were hanging out, and we're in Barcelona a few days ago, and we were just chatting with some random people, and we just got on the topic of what we do, and I said I had this exogenous ketone company, and we do this stuff called Ketosis. And this person was a pharmacist and said, well, isn't that not good for you to have ketones like on a day-to-day basis? And I was just confused and asked, like, what mechanism would you ever say that like was a negative problem for it? And she reasoned through herself, actually thinking about it, that it's just a normal substrate in a breakdown. Like if you were to have glucose, like small amounts of glucose, which your body can use as a fuel, like that wouldn't, that's saying like what happens if you eat fat every day, right? And so it's just the breakdown of fatty acids, and so it's a completely normal substrate in a normal energy molecule for people. It's not like a synthetic thing where like you're taking a supplement that of a compound that doesn't exist. This is something your body produces on a daily basis, or should anyway. So, and it's bioidentical to that same compound. So there's no downside to it.
Well, yeah, but you could say that, but then you could say, well, your body, you should be creating a certain amount, or you should be eating a certain amount of magnesium. But if you over supplement with magnesium, might not be a good example. Calcium might be a better example. If you over supplement with calcium, there might be certain side effects. You're obviously changing the biology of you're changing your biology, or not?
Sure, I got you. So
yeah,
they've done studies in rats, and it would have been like 18 tubs essentially of perfect keto a day, and they actually had no problems. The only problem that
the poor rats.
Yeah, I mean, there was had tons of energy. It was awesome.
They were loving it.
One of the things that can happen, that if people that have any kind of gut problems, or their body isn't used to using any beta hydroxybutyrate because they've been eating high amounts of carbohydrate for so long, is that you can have some digestive issues. So what happens, you consume the stuff, your body goes, what the hell is this? Get it out. I don't want to do anything with this. And then, so you have a little bit of GI upset from that. And that's pretty much the only side effect that I've seen. And that can be remedied by basically starting out with a really small amount, eating a more low carb diet, and getting your body used to using a beta hydroxybutyrate or ketone molecule as a source of energy. So it's actually prefers it and starts uptaking it. So you have these certain transporters into cells. They're called monocarboxylic acid transporters. And so if you've been eating a high carbohydrate diet for a very long period of time, and your body has kind of down-regulated it and doesn't have that channel working as well in cells, then you're going to have a tough time using a lot of the ketones for any type of fuel. And so if you're having kind of GI problems which is the only side effect that I've seen with the supplement, I would say just start small and then kind of bump it up, or eat a lower carbohydrate diet and then ramp it up from there.
And I should say, Anthony, that with your product, I have never had a full scoop of it. I started with a quarter scoop, and I'm now on about half a scoop, and it still works.
I usually do like half to a full one as well, just depending on the state of ketosis I'm already in. Yeah.
So, I mean, keto, it's hot right now, isn't it? And actually, before we start recording this,
hot, yeah.
It's so hot. People just love it. And, 4 or 5 years ago, nobody really heard of it. And now everyone's talking about ketosis, what it can do for you, how it can help you lose weight, if that's what you're after, or, inflammation or digestion or whatever it is. I was speaking to someone and they were like, I remember when they said that low-fat diets were a good thing, and now they're saying ketosis is a good thing. It's hot right now, but will it always be hot? What would you say to that? Is this something that in 10 years' time we're still talking about? Or will we have moved on? Or will the world have moved on?
I hope it is, from an aspect that there's just so many possible benefits from it. And so you can treat so many conditions from it. And I think it's just a more normal human metabolism. I don't think so. These people come on and say like, well, you're not supposed to be doing this every day forever. And I think that's appropriate. I think that humans throughout history probably weren't in ketosis 100% of the time, but they probably were the majority of time. And so just like, I think, like I mentioned, kind of a paleo type of diet earlier, I think it's just normal for humans throughout the course of history to have eaten real foods. And I think it's normal throughout human history to eat kind of a lower carbohydrate, high ketone diet. And so that's why I hope that it can kind of sticks, because it's like we're just rediscovering what we've been doing for many, many years. And so that's one of the things I think is super important. And it just gets a lot of processed food out of the way. If you're doing it in a high quality way, there's nothing good about processed carbohydrates. And so if you just remove those things as a first step, I think that the amount of health people can get, like the advantages, it just skyrocket.
I mean, I agree. And I think it does feel very primal because you're really eating the delicious stuff, but the kind of more natural stuff. And as you say, it just rules out cake. You know, you're not going to delve into the treats that someone brings into the office because it's someone's birthday. But some people, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, like paleo treats, I think is where like people get into a huge problem with, it's like almond flour and honey and all that stuff. It's like you're still eating a super high sugar, easily digested thing that's like it's not real for your metabolism. It needs to be like a real food that has slow metabolism, which is really beneficial.
They're so delicious though, those paleo treats, and they just like compensate for the lack of gluten and they put extra sugar in them. Exactly. It's funny though, I feel like I'm becoming that guy because now I'll eat something like that and I'm like, oh, it's too sweet. And, you know, everyone looks at me and says, oh yeah, whatever. But you do realign your taste buds, don't you?
Yeah, and it's just like, I think it's a spectrum, and people kind of, like I used to be that way. Like when I first started doing this stuff, 6-7 years ago. About then, it's been a while now, and I think you kind of make shortcuts, but then it's easy to bring it back long term when you kind of just think like, what am I trying to get out of this? I'm just trying to enjoy real food. Where making the switch from kind of a standard American diet can be tough, and so I mean I can relate with that and why people want to add those things in. But after a while, like I said, your palate changes, your expectations change, and now like for me, like eating a carrot's super sweet.
Eating a carrot is super sweet.
Yeah, I mean, especially if it's a real carrot and it's like this like weird bag of super pale, like orangish, whitish type of stuff. Like if it's like a really colorful carrot from a farmer's market or something. Yeah.
The thing that killed me when I started doing ketosis was I was like, because you do have to look. That's the downside of it. You have to be just like so hot on carb content in food. And I was like, well, avocados, no carbs. I can eat as many of them as I like. And then I realized after a while, there's quite a few carbs even in avocado. That killed me.
Rookie mistake right there. Yeah, rookie mistake.
You wouldn't think it, would you? You think avocado, good fats, that's it. But carbs in there.
And that's why I think you just need to test in the beginning and like see, half avocado is good, full avocado not so good.
So what's your story then? Because at the moment you're a well-known speaker on not just ketosis, but a number of kind of natural health matters, and you've been in Barcelona and you're in Budapest and you've been talking at conferences. How did you kind of get into all this and into ketosis and into starting a ketosis company?
Yeah, so I was super overweight and my family had a lot of health problems when I was younger. And so from an early age, I wanted to get in healthcare. And from that, I noticed nutrition was the easiest thing to kind of modulate. And so I used nutrition when I was, like I'd say, in high school to start to figure it out. Definitely didn't perfect it and wasn't super smart about it then, but at least like tinkering with stuff and knew that changing people's health through nutrition was a huge thing. I was also a lot into sports medicine. And so I got my doctorate in chiropractic and in sports rehab, had some clinics in San Francisco. And what I realized is that still nutrition was the biggest thing if people were recovering from either a sports injury or even if they had gut problems or metabolic dysfunction or needed to lose weight or anything like that. Nutrition was always the cornerstone of the type of intervention that if people didn't have proper nutrition, they were always going to fall apart. Like if you're trying to recover from a sports injury, but your body doesn't have like the collagen to make the actual new cells and the fat to make the hormones that you need to can repair things, then it's just kind of a loser's game. You're never going to be healthy. And so looking at that, I kind of saw where my day-to-day practice was and the impact we could have on people was just so limited. And so what I wanted to do at that point was kind of scale. And so we started with a company that is called Equip now, and it's whole food. supplements. And so we have like a beef protein, a sweet potato powder, greens powder, stuff like that. And so my goal with that was just expose people and give them more convenience options, but have it be kind of a whole food based thing. And then
You're such a high achiever, Anthony. How old are you?
29.
Oh my God. I'm just Googling Equip now. So hang on, what do you say? You sell like collagen and...
Oh yeah. So all kind of whole food based products. And so grass fed beef protein, collagen, turmeric and ginger and black pepper powder for anti-inflammation, greens powder, sweet potato powder, just one simple food source as close to the food as you can get it. And like, I mean, I think you should be eating real food 100% of the time if you can do that. But there's a lot of use cases where people need to kind of add stuff in or want a buffer in their nutrition. I think there wasn't any good options out there for kind of whole food nutrition. And so I'm trying to make that easier for people. Yeah. It was kind of the first step. And then after that, I saw that I was using a ketogenic diet myself first, actually in undergrad. So however long ago that was, like 9 years or so. And it wasn't even like really, like we weren't thinking about it in the same way, but I was talking with one of my friends who like one of the smartest guys I've known. He actually had epilepsy, and I was talking to him about like, cause I wanted to lose fat and look good, it's undergrad. So I was at that stage. And
well, you're not at that stage now. You still want to look good now. Come on, admit it.
Yeah, it's not as big of a priority. But summer comes around, undergrad, you need to look good. Yeah. And so I was talking to him about what I was learning in like biochemistry. I'm like, well, if we restrict carbohydrates and using this synthesis of ketones, like, shouldn't you lose a lot of fat? And he's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, actually. So I've been using this like for my epilepsy because he had a lot of seizures, and that's actually how a ketogenic diet was studied originally. So it was like 9 or 10 years ago when I was first toying around with this stuff. So that had always kind of been in the back of my mind as I was using therapeutic nutrition with people. And so, like I said, I always for me it's quality first, so getting quality down, and then after that, I started using it for fat loss and inflammation control with my patients. But one of the things, again, with the whole food company is like making it accessible and easy for people to experience is super difficult when you're just switching from a standard American diet. And so that's why after the Equip, we wanted to do Perfect Keto and really make it accessible. And like you said, it's so hot right now that you're going to have a lot of people coming into the space that don't know what the hell they're talking about and don't really understand the science behind it, which leads to these outrageous marketing claims. And kind of, like I said, it should be sticking around long because there's so many benefits to it. But if people come in and make all these outrageous claims, it's going to tarnish the actual positivity that ketosis can bring to people's lives. And so not only like are we trying to provide products that people can have to experience it and make ketosis easier. And so that way you don't have to freak out all the time. It's like, oh, if I have this one thing, like, is this going to be ruined? Like, we want to make it as easy as possible. And so, I mean, obviously the exogenous ketones help, but then we're starting to come up with all these other products that make the lifestyle of a ketogenic diet more accessible and more easy, but also like the content and information I think is super important as well. So like if people don't know how to test their levels or how to do things like that, or really what is ketosis in the first place? What is it good for? There's a lot of hype and a lot of inaccuracy around that as well. And so building out all that content and providing those resources for people, for me, has been one of the most important things. And so we're really investing hard in that and like using a lot of the resources we have as a company to invest into the education piece, because there's just so much variance in it that if people don't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, they're never going to make any kind of behavioral changes long term. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to focus on as well.
So, I mean, I'm interested in, obviously the ketosis is working for you on a sharpness level. It sounds like you're operating at a high performance level. But one of the things I often think when I speak to someone who's, well, like you, 29, got 2 companies, got a practice, got all this stuff going on, traveling around Barcelona and Budapest. How do you juggle all that? And does ketosis genuinely help in maintaining a sense of balance? Because if there's one thing I have to strive for more than anything else, it's hard sometimes to maintain a sense of balance and get away from work.
Yeah, I mean, balance is a tough word for me. I mean, there's just so much stuff that I'm trying to do at one time that I think a ketogenic diet helps tremendously for me, especially on a day-to-day basis. Whereas like I can't, like the amount of level energy that I need from when I wake up to when I go to bed is like there's a lot I need to do. So like that is the number one thing for me for a ketogenic diet. Like obviously the sharpness and the mental clarity is good, but not having energy crashes throughout the day. And like for instance, the other day, my friend and I who were here together working, we were working almost the entire day, and at the end of the day, we're like, oh, I guess we had like one snack today. If I was eating a high carbohydrate diet, it'd be like every 60 minutes, it'd be like, oh man, we need to go like get some food and do this, and then like go through this cycle of like energy crashes, like having to go eat or having to like buy groceries and cook and clean. And so for me, honestly, like being able to remove the element of having to eat every 60 to 90 minutes is a complete game changer. And like I don't like again, that's a completely different priority than I think most people have. But I think removing that and not having to be chained to eating and like restoring my blood sugar levels has made a tremendous difference.
That's really cool. And this podcast, it's called Zestology. It's all about energy. And it's the reason that I set it up is because I had this tropical virus and I spent 3 months in bed and I didn't have any energy for a while. So that's why it's so relevant to talk about this stuff, because it is literally something that potentially gives you more energy, which is very exciting. Actually, one of the things that I've found adapting to the ketosis diet is that I've noticed a big difference in inflammation. I've noticed a difference with digestion. At times, I've felt this incredible surge of energy, but in times I have felt more tired. I think it is quite hard to transition. I've needed the odd nap. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll
when people transition in and out of a ketogenic diet, especially if you've been in a high carbohydrate diet for a long time. So your body's really only used to, like I said, with the transports, your body's only really used to using one type of energy. And so if you're just starting to get into it, it can be a little brutal where you're not giving your body carbohydrate, which is what it's asking for energy. And also it's not used to and not able to use the ketones as readily. And so it definitely is not fun in the beginning if you're just switching to it. But that usually gets pretty easy kind of as you get more flexible with your nutrition longer term, in my opinion. And that's one of the reasons, again, like I don't think the exogenous ketones are magic by any means, but this is where it can help significantly in the short term for people transitioning to a ketogenic diet. And so if there's a ton of people out there who try it for like 2 or 3 days, they feel like crap and then don't want to do it, well, then that person just missed out on maybe years of benefits. And so if they can take a product that helps them get through that tough time to be able to then just have high fat diet, then I think that's a success.
Yeah, that happened to me. I'm so pleased listening to you say that I pushed through, because I didn't try exogenous ketones for a couple of months. I was just doing it. God, I was tired and I was really thirsty all the time. I was putting quite a lot of salt in water, which I'm still doing a little bit. Would you say that's okay to do?
Yeah. So actually, when your body so if you eat a low carbohydrate diet, your body will have less glucose to clear out of your system, and therefore less insulin. And with less insulin, you'll actually retain and excrete more salts. So not just like sodium. So what type of stuff are you putting in your water, for instance?
Well, I was putting Himalayan salt in my water.
Oh, yeah. So that's perfect. So the great thing about Himalayan sea salt and like the pink stuff like that is that you're gonna have actually a lot of different minerals in there, not just sodium. So table salt is just essentially sodium, which you excrete a lot, and then therefore you become thirsty because you're excreting more water. If you start peeing out all of your minerals and stuff like this, then and all these salts and what people know as electrolytes, then you're going to lose a lot of water. And so I think that people are worried about salt intake and stuff like that. You actually need more sodium and more electrolytes on a ketogenic diet because your insulin is so much lower, and so you don't retain this water. And so like that's actually why people get really lean and feel really good physically and less bloated. It's because you're actually your body is asking for less retention of these fluids.
Very cool. So I was doing all right there.
Yeah. The Himalayan sea salt in the water, I think, is pretty good. Like your body's demand for those type of minerals and nutrients is actually way higher on a ketogenic diet. So you intuitively listen to that. So good work, man.
Good, excellent. Well, I wasn't quite intuitively. Someone told me to do it, but
oh well,
yeah. Cool. But I took their advice, so that was
instructions.
Good.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, I mentioned the sport. That's a big interest, a big hobby. Not just a hobby; it's my work as well. And I know that you also work with top sports stars in the US, NFL, baseball, also basketball. Are some of these guys now experimenting with ketosis? Is this something that can work at a high sports performance level?
Yeah, I think it can. And so one of the examples here, I don't work with LeBron, but he started a ketogenic diet, I think, a couple of years ago, and lost a ton of weight and really improved his longevity.
LeBron.
And the minutes he was playing. And so that's a kind of a good example. However, I have some NFL players that are trying to switch to a ketogenic diet, or like were asking me about it, and I said, no. I said absolutely not. And so there's all this research and people who are coming out like in support of ketogenic diet, which is great for athletics, and this is fantastic. But I don't think a ketogenic diet is a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody for their goal. And so if I'm working with an athlete and they want to, their number one goal in life is to perform at a high level, and their demands in their sport are explosive and short-term bursts of energy, like an NFL player or a CrossFitter, for instance, or like two populations I work with, I would not recommend a ketogenic diet for that reason. I think you could do it, but I don't think you would have the ultimate advantage in be able to eke out and get the maximum benefit for that particular sport.
So if you're doing CrossFit, you shouldn't be on ketosis.
Incorrect. So if you are a competitive CrossFitter, and you need as much edge as possible, then ketosis is not right for you. If you're just a person who's going in and working out 3 to 5 times a week or something like that, you're not going to get the most amount of physical benefit out of doing ketosis. But I think like if people rank their priorities in their life of like, oh, I want high energy, I want fat loss, I want like I want these type of things, lower inflammation, blah blah blah, then I think a ketogenic diet is good. But if your main priority, if your number one priority is for competitive advantage for CrossFit, I would say that it's not a good idea.
Interesting. So what you're actually saying is, if you do ketosis, your guns might not be quite as big, but you'll live longer, happier, and healthier.
Yeah, I think it's a fair trade-off.
Yeah, so do I. But I'm not sure that the 20-year-old Tony would have agreed.
Yeah, like I said, priorities were different undergrad for me.
Yeah. Although, I mean, with an undergrad, one of the things that, you want is sharpness so you can work all the way through the night on that essay you've been putting off for 4 weeks. And I guess ketosis would help in that, and it wouldn't be like taking modafinil, so that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, actually, this is one of the things that I didn't realize until later on as far as the benefits of ketosis in a mental state. Like that's something that in the last like 2 years I've been playing around with. I didn't notice that when I was trying to do that for like fat loss in undergrad. I didn't notice it, maybe because I was just, my nutrition probably wasn't great and I was just pulling all-nighters and partying more than I am now. So maybe it was harder to realize that energy phase shift type of thing. But now for sure, it's like the mental energy is just no brainer for me.
It's been so good to talk to you, Anthony. I'm feeling more inspired about what I'm doing and about the possibilities.
Your ketone levels raised just a little bit.
Pretty much, yeah. All I need to do is do a Skype interview with Dr. Anthony, and the ketone levels are raised. It's pretty awesome. Something I've asked everyone is what is one book that you would recommend, and what is one tip for more energy? What about you? Have there been any books that have had a big impact on you? It doesn't have to be about ketosis. It could be about anything. And your tip could be about anything as well. And what would be a book that you'd recommend and a tip for more energy?
Yeah, I think a book that I just read actually that has nothing to do with nutrition, but is like made me think a lot was Lessons of History by Will Durant. Super short read, just fascinating. So nothing to do with nutrition, but I think if you want to think about life, it's an awesome read.
So it's called Lessons of History.
Yeah, by Will Durant. And
right, I'm making a note of that. I love a short read, and I love a book about history, so that sounds pretty good.
It came out like 50, 60 years ago, but it's like extremely relevant. It's a fantastic read. If you like thinking about kind of these long-term things of like life and human history, it's a fantastic read. And then what was the other?
What is one tip, the one thing that you would recommend for more energy, vitality, and motivation?
Yeah, eat food that spoils. Yeah, that'd be the number one tip, I think.
That's really good. I'm presenting a sports event in Barnsley, which you may not have heard of. It's in northern England. And from my experience of having presented events in Barnsley in the past, the food options aren't great in this place where we're going to be all weekend. And I went to Whole Foods yesterday and spent £99 on various foods that I could take up there that don't spoil, but kind of vaguely fit the bill of what I'm trying to achieve. So ideally,
general rule, is that? But like, what did you pick up?
Oh well, Epic bars.
Oh yeah,
we don't have them over here, which is a source of great annoyance. But a company is launched that is selling something similar, and then some cabbage crisps and some coconut milk and stuff like that. So all fairly good stuff.
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Kind of ironic advice coming from a guy who has a couple supplement companies, huh?
I know it is. yeah, that's right. Your greens. I think the greens thing is interesting as well. I'm going to look into the greens that you sell. But listen, it's great to talk to you. I'm going to let you get back to the wonders and the delights of Budapest now.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And the perfect keto, it's awesome. It's great on a night out as well.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. Just before you go, where can people find out more about you, your companies, all the different stuff you've got going on?
Yeah, so Perfect Keto is just perfectketo.com or Perfect Ketones on Instagram. Me personally, I write some articles that are my own opinion all the time at dranthonygustin.com. And then, or just if you want to get in touch with me on Instagram at dranthonygustin. And that's where I engage the most with people online.
Awesome. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And hope to, if you ever come to London, let me know.
All right, thanks. One take.
One take.
Thanks to Dr. Anthony. Yeah, I've got to admit, it has not been easy, my journey on the keto diet. My journey. There it is, that word again. Not been easy, my life on ketosis in the last few months. One thing I would say is that one of the things that I found makes a massive difference is walking around in London with 3 staples in my bag all the time, and then it just kind of seems to help. I keep Himalayan salt in my bag, some brain octane, and some charcoal. So the Himalayan salt I've been kind of putting into water a bit. You just seem to need a little bit more salt when you're doing the ketosis diet. The brain octane is the C8 oil, the kind of highly refined MCT coconut oil. And you can find more about that online, and you can put that into your tea or your coffee or bulletproof coffee or whatever you want, and that can help you get into ketosis as well. And the third one is charcoal. So if you do eat something that's a bit suspect, or you do have a slightly dodgy tummy, and that's very rare these days, it's definitely helped sort out my digestion a little bit doing this ketosis diet. You've got the charcoal tablets on demand at all times to soak up the toxins. So that's the contents of my bag, and that seems to help. And if you want more details, you can get in touch. As always, with kind of any new lifestyle or diet, best to consult your practitioner first. I would say, especially with ketosis, it's good to have someone to help guide you through it. It's not a particularly easy lifestyle change, and there is a bit of adaptation. So consult your practitioner before you embark on a change. There you go, there's the legals out of the way. And that is pretty much it. It's a beautiful evening here in London, a little bit chilly, coming to the end of summer. The afternoon of the year, as someone once said. So that is pretty much it from me. Thank you, as always, for your kind of reviews and passing it on to friends and everything else, and I'll see you next time.